do you guys want to talk about?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling here on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I am, of course, your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Tuesday. How are we doing today, everybody? It's good to see those of you that are tuning up in the chat room. Got a lot to discuss today. Good morning, good afternoon to Statboy and all his internet fans. Good to see you here, my brother. Make sure you guys tune into Statboy Sports Bar later on this afternoon, 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. We'll get you another shout out during the plugs later on this evening, this afternoon, towards the end of the show. But let's get down to business here. We are going to discuss Monday Night Raw from last night, of course. 3-hour Raw, and if I'm being honest, last night felt every bit of those 3 hours. Probably because I was already exhausted, but I did see a few other people talk about how the first couple hours just kind of felt mad to them. I wasn't that bored by it, but the opening segment was I was literally nodding in and out. If I'm gonna be 100 with you. I'm sitting here during the opening segment like this. Like I could still hear everything that was going on. I have my notes, but I was just so exhausted. And then to start the show with the promo segment instead of with a hot match, that probably added. But I digress. Show started out with Cody Rhodes coming out to the ring, and Cody says that he has history in the building that they're in. They were in Washington, D.C. last night. Talks about his tag title match that's going to be later in the evening, and then introduces his War Games team member by member. Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and then Seth Rollins. All of them take their turn coming to the ring, and Cody says that they've all gathered together because of the Judgment Day. Judgment Day comes out without Rhea, and Priest, calls the babyface team just a bunch of randoms thrown together, while the Judgment Day is a family. Priest and Balor proceed to take shots at everyone, and when Dom starts to speak, the audience, of course, boos him out of the building. Sami then gets on the mic and talks about the brutality of War Games. Of course, as far as main roster goes, Sami and Jey Uso were both in last year's War Games, so they can speak on experience. And Sami talks about the brutality, and Cody gets Priest so hot that he admits that he is the leader of the Judgment Day. Of course, this gets looks at Priest from Balor, JD McDonough, and Dominic Mysterio, as they've said all along that there is no leader, they are equals. Challenge is issued for Sami and Seth to take on JD McDonough and Dominic Mysterio, since Cody and Jay have a tag title shot against Priest and Balor later on the evening. During the commercial, the match is made official. And as we get back, we have Seth Rollins. As we get back from commercial, we have Seth Rollins and Sami Zayn versus Dirty Dom and JD McDonough. This was a good match that ended in a no contest. Both sides looked very strong heading into next week. Of course, next week will be the go-home show to Survivor Series. And if I'm being honest, a lot of this week's episode felt like a go-home show to a pay-per-view or a PLE. Maybe that was part of the issue, because we've got literally 2 weeks until Survivor Series. There's only 3 matches announced. So we really need to get the ball rolling as far as adding more stuff to fill out the PLE. So I think that was part of the issue, is that this week's show felt like a go-home show. And in a lot of ways, it kind of was. but we'll get there. After that opening contest, we had a promo in ring with Rhea Ripley and Adam Pearce. Zoe Starks came out during this and gets into Rhea's face. It was a solid promo showdown between both women. You know, Rhea trying to assert her dominance, Zoe not backing down. Definitely trying to make Zoe look like she could be a strong contender. When we all know odds are against her defeating Rhea Ripley at Survivor Series, but they're doing a good job in the build for her. We then get a Shinsuke Nakamura speaking in Japanese promo segment. And again, I've said a few times how much I enjoy these Nakamura segments where he gets to speak in his native Japanese. It's just great character building because I feel like it makes him seem more menacing. I don't know about you guys, what you think about it, but there's something so cold and calculated about the way Nakamura speaks in Japanese that just, if I'm being real, sends chills up my arms. We then had a promo backstage with Seth and Cody. You know, Seth, Sammy is back there for a little bit, and Sammy gets asked if he could leave. And we've got Cody and Seth, and it's like, look, I know that we've had our issues in the past, but I need you to be with me at War Games. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of deal. We don't have to get along. We don't have to like each other, but we have a common enemy in the Judgment Day, and we need to be able to work together. And Seth basically says, look, I don't like you. I don't know if I will ever like you, but I respect you. So if you need me for one night and the other 364 days out of a year, we can be whatever we need to be. You've got me for one night. So the proverbial burying of the hatchet to bring the team together as a more cohesive unit going into War Games against Judgment Day. We then had Shinsuke Nakamura versus Otis. And after the Nakamura promo and this match, it definitely looks like they're starting to push Nakamura again, much like they were leading into the matches against Seth, which of course Seth won. And I feel that kind of derailed Nakamura's push a little bit, but it looks like they're trying to right that train again. It was a great clash between the two men. Otis showing what he could do as an actual wrestler, Nakamura doing his hard-hitting kicks and stuff. It took not one, not two, but three Kinshasas to put Otis down, get the victory. And then it seems after the match like Nakamura is challenging Chad Gable. So maybe next week on Raw, we're going to get Nakamura versus Gable. And you know what? I even think they announced that for next week. So definitely looks like Nakamura is going through the entirety of the Alpha Academy right now. We then got an inside look at War Games. And we went backstage again. And this time we saw Seth and Drew McIntyre. And Drew kind of almost begrudgingly seems to congratulate Seth on the match at Crown Jewel. Shakes his hand, you know, admits that he got defeated by the better man. Says he'll work his way up to another title shot, and Seth says that he knows that he will. Jeff is in the chat room. What is going on, brother? Good to see you. I assume you were lagging a little bit because you're under the weather, but we appreciate you being here. We then had a Tegan Knox video package, which good video package, I criticized them about a week or so ago for doing a Natalia video package like we didn't know who the hell Natalia was. A Tegan Knox video package was a great idea because while some of you may be very familiar with Tegan Knox, you have to remember I've been back in the game for just under 2 years now. And I think I've seen Tegan Knox on my television for maybe 2 to 3 months of that almost 2 years. So I have very little knowledge about Tegan Knox. So for them to do this video package, I thought was great, gave me a little bit of insight into her, the challenges and the roads that she struggled through with her knee surgeries. And then we go straight into a match between Tegan and one half of the women's tag team champions, Piper Niven. It was a good match for both women, I thought. They made Tegan look very strong after that video package without making Piper look weak. Tegan got the win with the shiniest wizard, but again, they didn't make Piper look like a chump. And I watched our good buddy Datilla, Rangers of Wrestling. Check her out. She does reviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for Raw, Dynamite, and then Rampage. She won't be doing one this Friday. We'll get into that later. But she said on her review that Chelsea and Piper need to start winning more singles if they're going to be believable as a tandem. And while to a certain extent I agree that if they're going to be the champions, they should be dominant regardless, I think the angle that they're trying to run here, Datilla, and some of you guys in the chat room can sound off, let me know what you think of this. They're stronger together than when they're separate. Chelsea, everybody takes for this Barbie doll of sorts. Chelsea is the Karen, the pretty girl next door that everybody just kind of wants to beat the shit out of for being annoying. Piper's the big girl. Piper is that girl that if you can exhaust her, then you can beat her because she's not going to have the endurance of someone smaller. So it's divide and conquer. You get them separate, you got a better chance of beating them. But when they're together, they're so strong, they're so dominant. And I think that's kind of what they're going with here, is that they're better together than apart. That's why they're losing their singles, but winning their tag matches. Just my thoughts. I agree, King Mike. SmackDown is cooking up a few tag teams. Green and Piper better watch out. And then we've still got Katana and Kaden on Raw, who haven't really had a good shot yet. You still got Alba and Isla on SmackDown. Looks like they're going to put Natalia and Tegan together. So you've got the Kabuki Warriors back together on SmackDown. Which, could you imagine that? Io is the champion. Kabuki Warriors, Kairi and Asuka as tag champions. Dakota injured. And then where does that leave, Bailey? Something to think about it. I haven't seen the entirety of the video, Jeff, but I have seen her dressed up as Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, and I have seen Chelsea's reply to it. But yeah, I agree. I hate to acknowledge that one, Keen Mike. I'm not going to put my one finger in the air because of Charlotte. But yes, you're right. You've got that tandem as well. We then had a backstage promo where Miz was getting interviewed, talking about, the prestige that he's going to bring back to the Intercontinental title once he defeats Gunther at Survivor Series. Ivar comes in with Valhalla and basically says that, don't be looking past me towards Survivor Series. You've got to deal with me tonight. Bronson Reed gets involved in the promo, and Miz feels like he's getting upstaged a little bit. It was a meh promo, but I feel like it did what it needed to do to put the chess pieces in place for the match we would have a little bit later. We then would go to Tommaso Ciampa versus Ludwig Kaiser, and this was a good, fast-paced technical matchup between the two men. Giovanni Vinci was out there with Kaiser, of course. Gargano was out there with Ciampa. And Vinci got ejected from ringside during the match. But of course, he managed to come back outside to the ring just in time for the finish, gave a drive-by kick to Ciampa, to Gargano, allowing Kaiser to roll Ciampa up off of the distraction and get the victory. Ludwig Kaiser gets the win here. Again, good matchup. We then had a backstage segment with the Judgment Day, and Rhea is saying that she's going to handle Zoe at Survivor Series, and they kind of banter back and forth a little bit, and Rhea's like, well, let's see what the leader of the Judgment Day thinks. And everyone kind of turns and looks at Priest, and he's like, look, I'm sorry. I got hot out there. I said something I didn't mean. Let's just move on. And Rhea's like, well, but you know something? I will agree with one thing. You should be our leader into Judgment or into War Games. So Damian Priest is going to be the team captain at War Games, leading the Judgment Day. And then they decide, much to Damian Priest's chagrin, that it's finally time to make JD McDonough a full-fledged member of the Judgment Day. Balor and Rhea really push for it. Point out the fact that JD took another bullet for Priest today on the show. And Damian Priest is like, look, I'll do it. I'll handle it myself. And they're like, okay. See what we got here. Jeff says, I'm okay with Valhalla on our screens. The key is to avoid Wamhalla in December. If you know, you know. Agree. I also am okay with Valhalla on our screens. I really like Sarah Logan. I wish that she would be able to be Sarah Logan and not the stupid Valhalla character. I wish they'd let her wrestle more. Triple H has done a good job with going back to what made some of these women specifically and characters overall successful in the Black and Gold NXT when they were down there under his control. I understand that Sarah Logan is married to Eric in real life, the other half of the Viking Raiders, who I believe is out with an injury right now, which is why she's still been on screen with Ivar. But they need to ditch this stupid gimmick, or at the very least, turn her loose and let her be something in the women's division. Could you imagine Nikki Cross and Valhalla as a tag team? Especially if they get rid of this stupid thing they're doing with Nikki and let her go back to being crazy. I'd be down with that. Yeah, Sarah is a good-looking woman. What they're doing now, I'm not a fan of. We then had Xia Li versus Indy Hartwell. And Indy put up a decent fight, but the way they've been booking Xia Li lately, you knew Indy had zero chance here. There was a spin kick, caught Indy, knocked her out. Match was unable to continue. Lasted longer than it did with Candice LeRae. Thank God. Just goes to further my feelings about Candice LeRae and what a bitch she is, but I digress. But this was a good match that really kind of built Xia Li up more, making her look like a menacing force in the women's division. She's kicking these girls, rendering them unconscious and unable to compete. When she gets a shot at Rhea Ripley, all it takes is that one kick and a 3 count, and we got a new champion. We then had Becky Lynch come out immediately after and tells Xia Li that we're no longer going to do this on your time and your way. We're doing this on my terms. It's been made official. Next week, it's going to be Becky Lynch versus Xia Li. Welcome to the big time. Jeff says it's pretty sure that it's Sarah's choice not to wrestle. She doesn't want to be laid up with injuries as a mom later in life. Okay, I can understand that to an extent, but I don't know. I feel like they got to do something with her more than what they're doing with her as Valhalla. King Mike says he loves Xia, but she doesn't seem to have any reactions from the fans. I agree, but right now she's just going after these, for lack of a better term, no-name bitches. In this instance, I'm really not trying to hate on Candice, but you take Indy Hartwell, you take Candice LeRae, and you compare that to Nia Jax. You compare that to Zoe Stark or Becky Lynch, and it's like, if Xia can hit that kick on Becky next week in the match and render her unable to compete and continue, or even hit that kick and then be able to pin Becky Lynch, I think we'll start to get some reactions from the fans because she will have taken out the man with that kick. Jeff says Zaya's a bad MFer. About time they showcase this. Agreed. No boos, no cheers. It's dead. She's one of my favorites, but it's true. I hope we do. Yeah. It's all about showcasing the talent properly. That's what it's always come down to in professional wrestling and the WWE. And they're getting a lot better at showcasing people the proper way, especially the women. It's a building process. It's a turtle race, not a rabbit race. Like, you've got to build these people up. Honestly, I don't think Indy and Candice should be doing singles matches right now. They should be tag teaming, racking up some victories, and getting, a push towards the tag titles. Believe it or not, there's enough women that you could legitimately have a decent tag team division and book it properly. They just have to put all the pieces together. And I think they're slowly starting to do that. Because on Raw right now, you've got Kaden and Katana. It looks like we're going to get Tegan and Natty. You've got Shayna and Zoe. You've got Indy and Candice. You've got the pieces of the puzzle starting to fall together. It's just a matter of getting the ball rolling here. We then had Miz and Gunther backstage, and Gunther basically, tells Miz that he's a joke, that he's a good sports entertainer, but he's a horrible wrestler. We then go to a women's segment backstage where Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler are kind of talking. And Shayna, points out how it should be her that's the champion, that she should have won the Battle Royal. But she gives Zoe Stark the credit she deserves and the respect for handling business and getting it done. Raquel Rodriguez came in at this point, kind of echoed the sentiments. Should have been should have been her, but congratulations. Empathetic. Raquel steps to her, and I believe they made it official. Next week will be Raquel versus Nia on Raw, part of our Go Home to Survivor series. I thought it was a good segment, keeping all four of those women prominent and featured. And we know that those are our core contenders for the title right now. Is keeping that chili pot bubbling. We then had Ivar versus The Miz. And this was a decent match here. Nothing special, nothing to write home about. Bronson Reed came out about mid-match. Miz was able to use the ropes for the victory, beat Ivar. Bronson Reed then came in the ring and gave a tsunami to Ivar post-match. There were some "Let's Go Miz" chants during this match, which always warms my heart to see Miz getting babyface reactions from the fans, because it's well documented. Jeff and I have been Misfits from day one. We saw the guy when he was still Mike Mizanin, the Miz, in Ultimate Pro Wrestling in Orange County, California, when he was cutting his teeth prior to Tough Enough. We saw the Miz. We've been fans of him since before he got onto WWE TV. And we've known how special he was going on 20 years now. So to see him getting that reaction from the fans just warms your soul. We then had Damian Priest backstage. He finds JD McDonough and they have a talk. And Priest is basically like, look, you've done a lot. You know that you annoy the ever-living shit out of me. And JD's like, he's like, but I can't deny it anymore. You've taken one for the team for me. You've taken a bunch of shots. So here you go. You're an official member of the Judgment Day now. Welcome to the team. And again, much like the babyface reactions for The Miz, this warmed my heart some, because I've been a JD McDonough fan since he came to my NXT from NXT UK. There's something about him that just impressed the shit out of me from the jump. And I hope to God, now that he's an official Judgment Day member, we can start getting some JD McDonough merchandise. Like, it just seems so simple to me. Why have we not gotten an Irish Ace t-shirt yet? If you look at his logo on what used to be the Titantron when he comes to the ring, the spade with like the half skull, half face. You plaster that onto the t-shirt, put the Irish Ace over it. Bam. Merchandising. Like, just, it's just so simple. I agree, Jeff. Definitely awesome to still see Miz in the mix. Wish he could find the photo of him and Miz from SummerSlam 2011 or whatever year it was. I can get mine, but I'd have to distract myself from here and dig it up, so I won't. But I have a similar image to the one Jeff is talking about. I agree he was more badass on NXT, but he's also been kind of like this pledge type of character to the Judgment Day. I'm hoping he'll really get to showcase how badass he is now that he's a full-fledged member of the Judgment Day. We then had Gunther backstage, and he kind of congratulates Ludwig Kaiser on his victory, congratulates Giovanni Vinci on stepping up and helping the victory. And then Indus Shear came out of nowhere. Where the fuck have they been? Like, legit, I thought that they were gone without there having been an official release statement from them. It's been so long since we've seen Sangha and Veer and Jinder that I didn't even think they were a thing anymore. Interesting to see them show up. I'm almost willing to bet that we're going to get a tag team match in the not so distant future for the two teams, Imperium and Indus Shear. We then had a backstage segment where Chad Gable and the rest of Alpha Academy tried to comfort Otis on his loss. The Creed brothers come in, first appearance of the show today, and they kind of, they get a little braggadocious if we're being so honest. The way they kind of bragged and boasted almost came off heelish to me. I hope they're not going to turn them heel. They need to be babyface right now. But they kind of offered to be training partners for the Alpha Academy. You need the Creeds. They talk about how they're undefeated on Raw. They're going to go for the tag titles. And the New Day come in saying, you can't talk about tag team titles without talking about the New Day. Tozawa then screams about how he wants to be champion. And he's got a Washington Commanders legacy belt, one of those football titles that they're selling now. And he starts doing his little dance with it that he's been doing lately. It's been getting over. Xavier Woods says that Tozawa is nasty. I don't even understand what that's supposed to mean, but segment ends there. And then we have our main event match. And it's Damian Priest and Finn Balor defending the tag team championships against Jay and Cody. And in my opinion, this was a classic pre-pay-per-view main event. Again, we kind of talked about how this Raw felt like a go-home Raw, even though there's one more Raw next week. This main event felt like your standard go-home main event to me, if that makes any sense to you guys in the chat room. There was great in-ring action between all four of the men that were involved. We know that War Games is going to be 5-on-5, or at least that's what it's traditionally been. There have been instances in the past where it's been 4-on-4. But traditionally, it's a 5-on-5 affair. And with 2 weeks left, we don't know who the other two people are going to be. Well, it seems like we answered that question, at least on one end, as during the match, Drew McIntyre came out and hit the Claymore kick, allowing Priest and Balor to get the victory and retain their tag team titles. After hitting the Claymore kick, Drew starts to walk up the entrance ramp, and he's kind of standing at the top of the ramp there, and Mommy comes out. And Mommy just kind of turns to him, and he turns to her, and they shake hands. So it would appear, we'll have to get confirmation either via WWE graphic image or next week on Raw, but it would appear one could easily assume that the fifth member for Team Judgment Day is going to be Drew McIntyre. Now, with Priest having been given the leadership role for War Games, is Drew going to be willing to listen to Priest? is Rhea going to take the leadership away from Priest and give it to Drew? Because Drew's actually been champion. Is that going to cause some internal turmoil within the Judgment Day? And if Drew is going to officially be added, like we all assume that he will, who's going to be the fifth on the babyface side? The two things that make the most sense right now, of course, is CM Punk. Survivor Series is going to be in Chicago, or Randy Orton. Heavy rumors going around that Randy is going to be announced next week, just so that the crowd doesn't try to hijack it, thinking it's going to be Punk by announcing a mystery partner. Plus, the Usos defeated Randy Orton and Matt Riddle for the tag titles in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is the site of next week's episode of Raw. And Orton hasn't been seen since that show, according to internet rumor. I haven't done the digging to see if that's factual. Statboy, if you're in the chat room, maybe you can research that and let me know if that is correct or not on your episode of Statboy Sports Bar today. But if that is all factually accurate, that'll be an interesting twist to have Randy return at the same place where he last performed. In any event, that covers Raw today. It was, like I said, it was an okay show. The beginnings of it definitely were like, okay, but it wasn't anything because of the show itself. It was just me being tired. We got a $2 super chat from Jeff. Thank you very much, Jeff. Says he's going back to SEEP. Good recap. See y'all for Statboy Sports Bar tonight. Yes. If you can hang on for just a second, Meacham, and not go straight to bed, I'm going to do like I always do. I'm going to throw a little quick 40-second commercial. Maybe do 2 commercials, no more than a minute and a half. Then I'm going to come back, hit these shills, and you can kind of let me know in the chat room if there's any other shills that you need to get out there that I don't promote, and I'll bring those on the screen. If anybody else would like to super chat and dictate the conversation, you've got just about a minute and a half to do so. We'll be right back. We are back. Like I said, so much good stuff coming up here in the next few days, in the coming weeks and months across the multiverse of media. We've got Statboy listening but not listening, because I said he could let me know on the sports bar today, but he echoed in the chat room, May 20th, 2022, the Usos defeated RK Bro in Grand Rapids, Michigan on SmackDown. So yes, the same arena that they will be in for Raw makes a good return if you really want to think about it. So again, make sure you guys stay tuned in for Disney Week across the multiverse. Coming up at 4 Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern will be Stat Boy Sports Bar featuring Dory Lou. The food's hot, the beer's ice cold, and the seats are warm. So pull yourself up a bar stool and engage in some professional sports conversation with your barkeeps, Stat Boy Mike and Dory Lou. On Wednesday, special night, Talk Wrestling. Again, 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. Jeff Meacham will be taking the airwaves on Wednesday. Him and Greg Cherry have swapped places for this week. Greg had something he needed to do on Wednesday, so he decided that he was going to do the Greg Cherry show on Thursday. That allowed Jeff to go live on Wednesday, since he's supposed to be going to Downey, California to meet the devil himself, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, who, of course, is better than you, and you know it. All that, of course, leads us to the weekend. And my, oh my, no, not what a wonderful day, but what a hell of a weekend have we got in store for all of you guys. Beginning on Friday with Simply Predicting. Noah Foster, myself, and whoever else decides to join us will be predicting AEW Full Gear on Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. On Friday, we've got the Friday Night War Watch Along, where our roving correspondent Attila will be on the ground at the Kia Forum, roaming around, getting live reactions, popping in here and there to check in with us as we call the action for Rampage and Collision, and then the West Coast feed of WWE SmackDown, all on Friday night. We'll say it now, probably say it 100 times between now and then. Please don't post spoilers in the chat room for SmackDown while we're calling the action of Collision and Rampage. We know that the East Coasters are seeing SmackDown, but because it's going to be at the same time, please refrain from spoilers so that Noah and I can go into everything fresh, spoiler free. We have had a zero tolerance policy with this across the multiverse of media as of late. If you post spoilers in the chat, you will be banned. Period. And then on Saturday, it'll be our 23-hour Full Gear watch-along coverage as Tony Khan presents 172 matches live from the Kia Forum. I kid, but let's be real. TK's pay-per-views are long. But we will be beginning our Full Gear coverage at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, to allow for, again, our roving correspondent Attila, who will be on the ground at the forum, to pipe in, maybe get a little bit of fan reaction on the show, some fan perspectives, live from Full Gear, and then immediately following Full Gear, as you've seen on the bottom, displayed as I gave the show all day today, Open Mic Night Disney Karaoke, celebrating the 95th birthday of Mickey DeMouse and Minnie DeMouse. It's going to be a wonderful evening. King Mike says, am I the only one more excited for Noah than the pay-per-view? I don't know. It'll be a fun one. definitely going to be a fun one. Jeff says, easy on TK. It's only going to be 154 matches. Jesus, Jay. Keen Mike says, he will be at Rampage. Okay, cool. Keen Mike, have you ever watched Rangers of Wrestling, the YouTube channel? Yes or no? Please answer in the chat room. Do you know what Datilla looks like? Yes or no? Because if you've never watched and you don't know, I highly recommend you watch her recap tomorrow of Dynamite so that you can try to find her at the forum and possibly get on camera with her when she pipes in. You're a frequent contributor to the chat room, frequent participant. We'd love to see you on the air, joining Datilla. Just need to figure out a way for you to communicate with her and let her know, hey, I'm here too. Where are you? Let's meet up so that I can join you on the feed, blah, blah, blah. I don't say blah, blah, blah. But it would be good to have you jump in here and there. And yes, California does love AEW. They don't love some of the EVPs. Fuck the Bucks. But California does love AEW. So that is going to do it for today's episode of For the Love of Wrestling. Until tomorrow, when we take a look at tonight's episode of NXT, same bat time, same bat channel, right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I am the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Thank you for tuning in and joining me here today, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.